Hello, everybody. So this is a very exciting day on two fronts. We have finally crested 200 stars on GitHub, which is really exciting. And I just found out that Sasha Willems has followed me on Twitter and subscribed to this channel, which is really exciting. So we are in the big leagues now, folks. But I did not stream last week. I had mentioned that overtime was pretty much over for me at work, but while it was, I was kind of in this after overtime is over catatonic slump for a week, but I did manage to get some good progress. I just wasn't feeling very talkative, so I didn't stream. But for those that haven't seen my stream before, I am part of a two-person team that's been working on an engine with my husband for 5 years. I keep pausing because I really don't know. It's been somewhere between 7 and 5 years. But he started building a game engine in C++ because we were using Unity to make games, and I think it was Unet, but I really should ask him. But one of the libraries he was using for networking got deprecated probably 6 to 8 months into a game project that we were working on, and it was just the final straw. So we quit Unity, and then he wanted to learn C++, so he started making a game engine, and he made a graphics layer in DirectX 11. And then I came in and decided, I don't know anything about graphics programming. I want to rewrite the graphics, the renderer in Vulkan, because Vulkan, if you Google Vulkan, it says, oh, this is the modern day, next generation, low level abstraction, fast API. So knowing nothing about C++ and knowing nothing about graphics programming, I thought, why do I want to learn OpenGL when Vulkan is faster? And fast forward, it took probably 4 years or something for me to finish the Vulkan renderer, going from complete scratch to actually being able to render. We had a nice PBR shader, and I learned about shaders and C++ and modern C++ and Vulkan and all sorts of things about the graphics pipeline through that journey. So where we are today, my husband doesn't do much on the engine anymore. He's on a guitar kick. So I've been managing it solo for probably 3 months. And we are not using Vulkan directly anymore. That renderer still exists in our engine. It's currently called, the aptly named Graphics. It's in the Graphics folder. And then we have Graphics 2, which I've made that is pulling in a library called Diligent Engine, which I think I've recommended on every stream. I'm going to continue to recommend. But it is you can think of it as an abstraction layer that allows you to write graphics rendering code in Diligent speak, and then Diligent can run that on OpenGL, DirectX 11, DirectX 12, Vulkan, Metal. I'm probably forgetting some, but that's really convenient because you can write almost exactly the same code, and it can be interoperable with all of those languages and support Mac, Linux, and Windows. So I've rewritten the renderer to use Diligent, and my husband had written a physics engine, but for a previous project we had wanted wheel physics, and that was just beyond him, understandably, to try to implement, so we ended up pulling in Jolt physics into the engine. So that was done sometime maybe early 2025 on both fronts. So now for the last several months, I'm finally making a game using my shader, and I hate to be that person that says I liked dark fantasy before it was cool, but god dang it, I have been working on a shader with the specific intent to make it render dark fantasy, like high on the blacks, kind of comic booky, but very high in the detail. Yeah, I started this like mid 2024, and I'm still not great at shaders, but I was able to get everything that I needed to, so it has a nice normal and depth based outline, lots of detail, and it does some insane things that work very well specifically for what I'm doing. So it has it gets some of the details from the world space normal map, because we're doing world space normals, but it looks really cool. So I've decided to use that shader now to finally make a very small multiplayer deck builder fantasy game. So I've been working on that for several months, and I will show you. I think last stream I had left off with fiddling with trying to make a column for the UI. I don't remember if I'd actually done that last stream or if I was just thinking about it, but I'll show you where we're at now. So in the last week, so when you launch the game, you'll see it just a IMGUI networking loadout panel, and then here is the game. I'm really happy with how this column turned out. I just made it in. So actually, part of the reason I didn't stream last week, besides just being tired from work, was I spent the entire 2 weeks trying to figure out how to draw Celtic knots in Photoshop. And I would have settled for pen and paper, but Celtic knots are really hard to make. So because I want, I'm going for a very retro CRPG vibe here. So I want eventually this entire thing to be bordered by stone with cool engravings on it. And there will be lots of things you would expect in a point and click or CRPG game, like the eye icon, an inventory icon, all sorts of neat things here. But so far I've just finished the column. But I wanted Celtic knots for the column, and well, let me make my chat window up. There we go. Sorry guys, I forgot that I have a chat. Hey Omega Killer. So 200 GitHub star special. What is that? So we just crested 200 stars on GitHub for our engine, which is a really, really big deal. So we have a game engine we've been working on for anywhere between 5 and 7 years. We're just going to call it 6. And for the longest time, we've been in complete obscurity, so 200 GitHub stars is very exciting, but we're not actually trying to make the engine a product or anything. It's specifically only for our purposes, and those are generally for learning and for being able to make a game where we control the entire tool chain. But it's still very, very cool to see 200 GitHub stars, so that's what we're celebrating that today. And you said, I'm seriously considering moving to Vulkan now. I would. If anything else, you will learn a lot more about graphics programming than you would with OpenGL, just because you're simply forced to. There's a lot of memes about people spending 8 weeks just to get the triangle to render, like your traditional triangle with vertex colors interpolated. But that's real. I think it probably did take me 8 weeks to render a triangle to the screen. But in that process, you learn about the swap chain, you learn about command buffers, you learn about graphics cues, you learn about so much that you never would have thought of before. But yeah, I would just play around with it. But it obviously depends on what your use case is. If you've already made half of, you're planning on making half of the game with OpenGL and then moving to Vulkan, do it. Yeah, I don't know, maybe this is sacrilegious, but I feel like I could have done everything that I've done here in OpenGL. I didn't actually gain anything from using Vulkan, because I'm not writing state-of-the-art anything here. But that being said, there is definitely value in diving into the deep end so that you understand how the deep end works. But if you really do think you have something that you can't do in OpenGL, then yeah, by all means, dig into Vulkan or just do it anyway. So so we have one shader. Oh, the question is, when you say dark fantasy shader, you mean a post-processing shader, or are you building the whole render pipeline with dark fantasy in mind? So yes, we have a singular shader in the game, and everything in that shader is, well, actually I should say we have something like, I can actually look, something like 6 shaders for the material, and the material creates it's a dark fantasy kind of material, but I'm in the game, not the engine. So yeah, there are many different shaders. I call them a shader. I'm sure that is incorrect, but so we have probably be easiest to show it to you in RenderDoc, honestly. There's something like 6 shaders to make up my material. I call my material a shader. I know that's incorrect, but that's one thing about, we don't actually want other people to use the engine, because, we do, sure, go ahead, but it was never really intended for other people to use, because we can do things like make the entire rendering pipeline just to generate the stuff that we need. So this is, the colors are a little bit different, but I'll show you this is the engine sample scene. But this is giving me the dark fantasy look that I want. It's especially true if you take the black and you really bump it up, but I didn't do that here. So some of the aspects of it. Hi, Kurt Cobain, welcome back. Some of the aspects of it, there's an outline that is both depth, using the depth buffer, and then a normal buffer. There is kind of a single hatching, it's not cross hatching, a single hatching done here so you can see if the light threshold is low enough, we do this darker hatching, and then if it's light enough, we do this kind of lighter hatching. And then some of the other things that I did on there, I have I think you'd call it an asset creation pipeline, but the way that I make things is I render them, I make a really high poly model, and then I make a really low poly model. And I use Substance Painter to bake all of the, I really only care about the normal map, but I bake the normals of the high poly onto the low poly. And then I can generate that normal map in Substance Painter. And my shader will then know to pick up the normal map to catch all the details, like the wrinkles on his pants, which don't actually exist in the geometry. And then the other thing that I have that isn't as common, because most of that's pretty straightforward, but I have a gradient here, which is screen space, so I can choose here, I believe it's red, lower it's a little bit blue, and then I also have a grain effect to try to give it kind of a distorted look. I'm going, like, if you imagine a paperback cover from, or a pulp magazine from anywhere from the 40s to the 70s, they have this kind of a very specific look, but then if you imagine what a pulp magazine would look like today if it was from the 50s, it's going to be all roughed up. But yeah, let me show you that in RenderDoc, because I'll show you the individual shaders specifically. Those are pretty cool. Oh, I need to figure out how to name, but we do. This is our shadow mapping pass here, which I've actually turned off shadows for the game because I didn't implement shadows well in Diligent. I need to go back and fix them. No, does not have anything GI at all, Kurt Cobain. The question was, does this engine have dynamic global illumination reflections? The answer is no. Although I didn't get all the way to GI in Graphics 1, which was the straight Vulkan renderer, but I did have a pretty nice looking PBR minus GI there. So anyway, this one is our shadow map. This one is our depth buffer, which is separate. We need it for depth outlines. This shader does, what do you do? Oh no, never mind. Each one of these are 6 faces of the cube map is what I'm looking at here. I really need to name my render passes so that they show up. You know, I probably will if I need a game to make it. So the question was, will I add dynamic global illumination? Probably in the future if I have a game that needs it, but the glorious thing about writing your own engine is you're only writing it for yourself, and right now we're not making a game that needs it. And also, I have a special guest here with me today. There's a fluffy potato back there. His name is Sif, but we call him Doo-Doo. He's sleeping. Okay, what I was doing was trying to walk through the render passes that make up my shader. So the first 6 are just rendering each face of the cube for my omnidirectional shadow maps. And that one might just be there as well. Okay, so then this is just my diffuse geometry. This one is my normals. This one, where are you? Was that the cube map or the skybox? Yeah, this one's the skybox. Then this is the first post-processing pass where we apply outlines. Then this is the next post-processing pass where we do FXAA. Then this one is the gradient pass. Or no, this is the noise pass. And I think this one just blitz everything to the swap chain, but I might be wrong. I can't remember what this one does. So those are all the passes that make up the Dark Fantasy shader. So yeah, so we named him Sif after, well, I found out later that Sif is a Norse goddess, but, oh, that's disappointing, Kurt Cobain. So Mega Killer asked if Sif is in the sense of the Norse goddess of Earth and family. So I named him Sif because of the game Dark Souls, that the giant wolf was named Sif, the great gray wolf. So that's what I named him after. But it's funny because my last dog was Loki, and she was a girl. And so I've got some gender-bending Norse god family names unintentionally. I didn't even know that Sif was a Norse god or Norse goddess until I looked it up years after we got him. Then Kurt Cobain, you say that dogs are not allowed in your house. That stinks. I like cats, but I've always been a dog person. Although this dog, I love him to death, but he is something else. He's very high maintenance. But I kind of knew that going in. But I think dogs are wonderful. And then the very last pass we have is the Mgui pass. Dogs' mouths are not clean, you're right. His mouth is so unclean. He doesn't really let us brush his teeth, so we're working on cooperative care grooming, which just means that rather than if you have a dog that doesn't like grooming, you can't just hold him down and groom him. You're trying to get him to want to be groomed with you. He's pretty cute, thanks. So in order to do cooperative care grooming, you have to give him a huge amount of treats and just try to get him to want to be groomed. But that hasn't made it all the way to toothbrushes yet. So his teeth are brown and nasty and his breath is horrible. And we actually had to stop giving him chew bones because he's got a problem going number 2 right now, which is TMI for this stream. But the vet thinks it might be related to the chew bones that he was eating. And that was probably helping his teeth, and now they're just stinky and gross. Okay, so that brings us all back to making the game. And my mission for today, this morning I I completely rewrote the card shuffling UI because I realized it was looking pretty nice, but if I had it set up so that they would, if more cards were to fill the pane, then that would exceed the minimum constraint of how much card I want to be showing when compressed, meaning when they're all squished together like this, then they would move on to the next row. And I don't really want a user to have to scroll downwards to see rows of cards. I want them all to be in a row and then they can just shuffle. I think that's easier. Or they can just scroll. So I rewrote that this morning. Now I'm just working on 2 things. So the other thing I fixed is that if you only had 3 cards, show you that, 3 or 4 cards, they would span the width of the pane. So you'd have one here, one here, and one here. And I didn't like that because it looks unprofessional. So now if you only have N or less cards, where N is the width of the full card, so the amount of cards that would take up the X horizontal space of the pane at full size, so nothing being compressed. If you have more than that, then they compress, but if you have less than that, then you show the full card and they stack from the left. So in this example, just like this. So now if you have 4 cards, I think you can get up to 5, maybe 6 before they start compressing here, but they fill in nicely from the left. So what I was going to work on stream now was if you have enough cards that they're compressed, then they look really dynamic when you hover over them because the one you're hovered on gets the focus and the rest slide away. But if you only have 5, 6 or fewer cards here, then there's no interaction at all because there doesn't need to be because you could see the full card. So the plan here is to have the card grow by, I'm thinking by about a tenth of the card's size. So that would put it to be about, if we're looking at this card, it would grow to about right here. Oh, thank you, Kurt Cobain. You said it's good that you record making your game on YouTube. It's like you're making a documentary about your game. I agree. It's really cool. And I've gotten into the habit of recording even if I'm not streaming all of my asset creation, because I don't want to make anything AI art. And so if I'm going to be paying the time cost of making all the art manually, I'd rather have like proof that I didn't make it. Because even if I'm not claiming to be skilled enough that it looks like AI generated this stuff, and I think I can get it to that point where it would look really, really good the more I iterate over it, but right now it doesn't anyway. But I think that the only way that we can prove that we've actually gone and made all of this ourselves is to have video recording of it. But it is really cool to look back at old videos and say, oh my gosh, look what I had 2 months ago compared to what I have now. So yeah, my mission for the next however long is to give the card about a 1/10 scale up when it's hovered, and then when it's not, have it shrink back down. Yeah, it's cool to watch go back and revisit my YouTube videos over the past and see how far the game has come. Okay, so we have, the way that the card sliding is working is we have basically a vector of current positions, and then a vector, and that's just the X, and then a vector of target positions. So I think what I need, and then we just get the delta time and we lerp over the target between the current and the target based on the factor of time every frame. So I want to do the same thing. Size now. The question is, do I need... I don't think I need to actually track both the X and the Y, because they're going to be scaled by a common factor. So I think I can just track the... So I think I can just track the X and then use my aspect ratio. Because I learned that a playing card is a 1:4 aspect ratio, so it's... I can use that. So if I track the current X size, and the target, his big fluffy tail back there. He's a wonderful dog. He's just really barky. He has an opinion about everything. Okay, then I want to calculate target size. I think really the only game logic, do I need panel size or just... I don't think I need the panel size. I only care about the active card, the card width, and I should make a new variable for card active size ratio equals 1.1. So when the card is hovered, I want it to be 1.1 times the size. So I've never seen anyone make, or I've never seen the code for however anyone makes production UIs using MGUI, because it's not really the tool for it, or so I've been told, but I've had no problem so far going down the road of making MGUI my production UI. But it might be interesting to those that want to follow a similar path because I think that architecture is good if it meets your needs and if it's easy to maintain. And so I've gone through a couple iterations of how I'm designing using mGUI as my production UI, but right now it's a little bit different also per each case. But the way that I've landed is keep static context for floats for ratios for things, because you won't have the screen, the extent of the window at compile time, but you will know these ratios. So I say that my viewport, which is this here, I want my viewport to be approximately 0.6 or exactly 0.6 of the entire screen. I want the toolbar height to be 0.08 of the entire screen, of the screen height. I want the log and players width ratio to be 1.0 minus the viewport size, so that the screen is divided exactly between the log and players width, or the log and players window, and then the viewport window. So then if I want to make any kind of changes, I can just come in here into a single file and change these ratios. And then in my code, because mGUI is an immediate mode renderer, so it renders everything every single frame. It calculates all of the stuff, and it creates new objects and such every single frame. So you want to try to avoid as many calculations as you can when you do that. So then I do in here, it's a good example. I'll go to my play mode UI. In here, I just try to make these static const objects where I do the calculations, so then those only happen once. And that's obviously, we don't have dynamic screen resizing. We are not going to allow that, so you can only change the size in the options menu, and it will require restarting the game. So that allows us a lot of... Oh, I do know Tokyo's Love. I haven't watched a lot of him, but I have so much respect for him. That guy's a genius. I haven't watched him a lot, or I haven't watched much of anyone in a long time, but yeah, he's super funny and the craziest, most productive human being I've ever seen. Tokyo Spliff is super cool. Okay, so I want... Where did I leave? Okay, yeah, calculate target sizes. I know. So we need the active card, the card width, and then we need a float for active card size. Yeah, I used to use just having a full-time job as, oh, I don't have time to make games, even though we've always like tinkered with stuff, but I blamed the lack of me really locking in and staying up super late and having success on that I had a full-time job and I have friends and a family. But then I realized, no, everybody that's an indie developer, or most people, are working somewhere to meet their needs. And it's actually gotten I've had a lot less time lately because we have a 3-year-old. And then I realized, but I've actually been more productive since having the 3-year-old than I've ever been before, because I realized that it's, if you want to do something, you have to actually do it. You can't just think about wanting to do it. And so I try to get an hour or 2 every single day. And then on weekends we get a lot more, because my husband and I kind of pass the baton with the 3-year-old, and he's napping right now. Okay, so yeah. If you don't already have a partner, find a partner that is, find a good partner, find a partner that works really hard, and but most importantly also wants to make games with you. And bonus points if he's much better, or she is much better at C++ than you, because my husband's a genius at C++. I'm not, but I make my way. I do need the card count, of course. Okay, so the card target X sizes equals. Okay, we're initializing an empty vector of floats to 1 per each card. And these are going to keep our target sizes, and then we're going to iterate through each of the cards in card count and say if I is the active card, then current size X. We're just going to track the width of the card because we can use the, I really should call that. I'll call it width. We're going to use the fact that there's a fixed aspect ratio to get the height. I'm going to call this inactive card width. Yeah. Kurt Cobain said try to take ideas from the old devs like John Romero. Yeah, I wish. I've been watching just interviews with John Romero before. If I could just like lifestyle and just personality and how they present themselves to the world, John Romero might be the coolest person ever. And John Carmack. Both of them. I've recently been watching, goodness. Oh my gosh. I literally watched it yesterday. Who is the CPP Weekly? Oh, Jason Turner. I've been watching Jason Turner's C++. He has 2 live streams, CPP for the absolute beginner and non-programmer. I watched both of those, and I've been writing in C++ for a while, and I just don't know what my skill set actually is, because I can do some complicated stuff, but a lot of it was absorbed from my husband, so I understand it, what it does functionally, but I don't understand the why or the how. And so I'm trying to go back to the basics and really get a solid foundation. But yeah, I highly recommend Jason Turner. He actually has a whole series of the live stream. I didn't get a lot of value out of because I'm not an absolute beginner, but I'm really interested in watching. I started the first of his course. He's a course on like a pre-recorded course on teaching C++. Then I'm also reading Effective Modern C++ again because it's a very information dense book and I didn't get a lot out of it the first time, and I don't think I was focusing very well, so I'm trying to read that again. And I don't think I even finished it before. I probably only got about a third of the way through. But I highly recommend Jason Turner and the book Effective Modern C++. I like the journal. I don't watch a lot of other people's blogs anymore because I'm not in tutorial hell anymore. And generally, it's not to say that the engine is perfect. In fact, their current graphics implementation needs to be rewritten already. It's not fantastic by any means. It's probably not even great. It just meets my needs, so I've moved on. But yeah, I like the journal too. My favorite C++ game dev to watch is Chili Tomato Noodle, but I don't know if he is still making C++ videos. Yeah, Kurt Cobain is recommending the Cherno, and then Omega Killer says Cherno never finishes any of his series. Yeah. I check out Chili Tomato Noodle, his C++ stuff. He's really funny. He's closer to Tokyo Spliff than he is to the Cherno as far as like not very polished and just spitting straight up facts and really goofy personality. Or not, it's not that he's not polished, he's just very very eccentric in a good way. Yeah, I don't intend this to be an educational course. I don't know. This is more just a come hang out with me while I type at one character an hour because I'm too busy chatting about stuff. Okay, so what we're doing here, we want to calculate target size so that on hover, the hovered card gets a little bit larger. And on not hover, it doesn't. So if I is the active card, we want the current size X to be card width. Oh, active, that's easy enough. Active card width, we're going to calculate it outside of here. Else. Current size X is going to be the and we don't want it to accumulate because we're not doing the position anymore. So current size X is going to be the, didn't I rename this? Oh, let's just do it right here. Okay, inactive card width. Target X size is I equals current size X. I'm fangirling so hard today because Sasha Willems has subscribed to my YouTube channel and I feel so proud. I have come very far because I remember when Sasha Willems liked a tweet of mine, and that was sometime last year, I think, and that was like a celebration worthy event. That was probably the most proud I've been in a long time. And now he's a subscriber to my YouTube channel. I hope he doesn't watching right now because that would be embarrassing, but that's super cool. Sasha Willems is where I learned all of my Vulkan stuff because he's got a really good Vulkan examples, and I think he's still working on it, but a really good Vulkan examples website. And then he also, I believe, let me find it, I think he's the sole maintainer of, probably not sole maintainer, but of gpuinfo.org. Maybe he is. Oh my gosh, that'd be crazy. But if you guys are, I don't think this is only Vulkan. I think there's an OpenGL one too. OpenGL. Yeah, there is. So this is Sasha Willems' stuff. He maintains this website that I feel like he gets his stuff, this information from the Steam survey, but he also might do his own surveys. But if you're curious about a Vulkan feature, let's say one I was looking at was not descriptor indexing, was it the update after bind bit? Well, let's just pretend I'm looking to see if I want to use float 16 in my shaders. So I can come in here and type the Vulkan feature in the search. And you can see that 71.71% of surveyed devices have drivers that can support this feature. And that is incredibly useful to know. Calculate target sizes. We don't need the panel dimension size. What do we need? We need the active card. Oh, I don't like that my parameters are out of order here. Okay, card count, active card, card dimensions.size.x, and then we also need we need the active card size, which would then be the card size times card active width ratio. Oh, I love chatting. I mean, I code all the time, not on stream, so chat away, because that's what I'm here for. Okay, so now what this will do is we'll generate a vector with a float for each card with the width of the card depending on whether or not the card is the active card, meaning it's been hovered. So then we want to say card current X sizes equals card X sizes, and then okay, I will try. Kurt Cobain was saying that if they chat too much, then I won't be focusing on the code, which is very true, but also why I'm streaming. But yeah, I will start chatting and then continue. I'll come back here and have to start from scratch because I will forget what I've been doing. Okay, so then we want to say that, so here is where I actually draw the physical cards, giving them their dimensions. And card dimensions is just a struct I made called panel dimensions. It has a pose and a position and a size. And so then what I do is, so we interpolate through the position and now the size based on whether or not the card is hovered and other factors, but basically just whether or not the card is hovered. And so I also want to say dimensions dot size dot x equals card x sizes I. Okay, then size dot y equals card current X sizes times the aspect ratio, which is that one, is it 0.7? Okay, that is 1.4. So the height is 1.4 times the width. I think that might just do it. We'll see. Ooh, they are gone. Okay, let's figure out what your size is being set to. Oh, the size is 0. Oh, because I'm not grabbing the target size. Hey, look at that. Oh. I forgot to set it back in the That's funny. They're going to continually get bigger. Oh, I thought, okay, so Kurt Cobain said focus to do. And I thought that you were telling me that Focus was on my to-do list, but you were telling me that it's an amazing app. I could use that. Hey, this is actually kind of cool. So in my loop where I'm setting the targets, I either set them to Actually, wait a minute. Why is this happening? I thought I was either setting them to be the card size times the 1.1, which would make it 1/10 bigger, or the original card size, but apparently I'm only ever making it bigger. Okay, so let's figure out why. Okay. Inactive. Okay, so if the card is the active card. Why? Okay. That isn't the problem, because I am setting. Kirkwaite says, I write to you to download it from the Windows Store. Did it show up in the chat? I do not see that. Last thing I see that you wrote was, no, for real, it's an amazing app. I don't know what controls what shows up in the chat or not. Okay. Oh, because I've never... Okay. Sure. Yeah, so... I wonder if I could just do this. Initialize all the widths to card dimension size dot x here, and then at the very end of the frame, is that gonna work? Don't think that's gonna work because I'm interpolating between them, but let's try it. Let's see what that, I think that's gonna clobber my animation because it's only going to go 1/10 of the way through. You're still getting big. Why? And okay, and everything is getting bigger too. Not just. Seems like about the right size. Okay, so when I mouse over, they all get bigger. So let's look. Oh, puppy dog. Hold on a minute. I'll be back in a couple minutes. I am back. The dog has been banished. My toddler woke up, which is what caused the hubbub. So Kurt Cobain says, oh, try to use the middle mouse button in the mouse for scrolling to make zoom in and out. That's a really good idea. I need to have some kind of zoom because the cards... So don't know if I've talked about this on stream before, but if you can... I'm sure you can see here because it's tiny, but you can't actually read the font. But you can read, or at least ascertain, what this says. This says player 4, even though it's much tinier than this font because this is just image compressed. And what I'm trying to do right now is make a vertical slice. So I'm trying to make like a fully polished, just very limited functionality demo of what the game can do. And then I'm going to start actually, so I'm going to stub out a bunch of features and fake a bunch of stuff so that I can start getting more attention and interest to see if this is something that I want to make. But I'm going to make it anyway. It's just, it'll be nice to know what people want. I'm going to get as much eyes on it, as many eyes on it as possible, because I want to know, first of all, how much interest there is, but also what people are liking, what people aren't liking early on. So I'm trying to make a vertical slice, which is basically just a polished, tiny little slice that has a bunch of functionality stubbed in. But as in doing that, I've just decided to make my text in Photoshop and then import the card as an image. But in the real version, I'm going to be using ImGUI to and import fonts, and then use ImGUI to write the fonts to the screen, because then I won't have to deal with compression problems, and then I'll also get DPI capability and translations when I do that. But all that being said, even when I do that, it's going to be very important to have the player be able to view the zoomed in version of the card. And I can't actually do the scroll wheel because this morning I implemented this functionality that already co-ops the scroll wheel. It uses it for a different purpose. So if I choose to have 100 cards instead of only 4, then the scroll wheel becomes used to slide to the right. So now you can slide to the right. I have to figure out what's happening. Okay, is it initially making my... But yeah, so the scroll wheel is already being used, but I think I'm going to solve the problem of needing to zoom into a card by having this loadout panel here. Whatever card you've hovered is going to appear in a stats mode, so you'll be able to see everything the card does. This card only has very minimal information because it's a weapon, but it's a weapon of channeling type, and it requires 1 stamina to cast. But I'll have all of that. Some cards will have more effects, and I want the player to be able to have those effects here, and when you hover over those effects in this loadout panel, you'll be able to get more information about them. And I think that will solve the problem. But okay, let's fix this bug. A shift button would... Kurt Cobain, that's an amazing idea. Okay, so if I hover over the first one, only the first one gets bigger. Are they all getting bigger right now? I can't tell. I don't think so. Okay, the first one gets bigger. Yeah, the shift button, scrolling and shift is a really good idea for zooming. I might just do that. Kurt Cobain, that is a very good idea. Okay, so wait. So it seems that mousing over a single item makes it bigger. Mousing away makes it smaller. So bigger, smaller, bigger, smaller. Mousing over. Okay. So that's just working. What is the bug? There is definitely a bug. You could see it before. Okay, let me go back to a simpler view. Yeah, I would imagine you can. I can't actually, even when I full screen it, it's kind of hard. Like, and I have a 1440 by 2560 monitor, or I mean, what is it, 2560? No, I think that's right, 2560 by 1440, and it's still hard to see. Actually, might not be able to see it when I full screen it because of the way that I've set up my screen window. The relevant part might be cut off. Oh. Uh-oh. What happened? Okay. I don't think you can see that. I think it became a new window. There it is. Yeah, this is full screen and you still can't really see it. But I'm hoping I don't have to solve this problem before I'm in the mode I'm ready to demo it, but I probably will. The problem of the text being too small, that is. But that seems like a huge task. So the task would be, I would make in Photoshop basically the card template, so it would have the image and then it would have the lines and the base. But then what I would then do is overlay on top actual ImGUI font so that it's not compressed. And the ImGUI font would then read from a resources file rather than being hard-coded in the engine somewhere or in the game somewhere. So then the resources file can just be uploaded at runtime. That way I can have a problem resurface when I had 100 cards. Oh, here it went. Hover over one, gets bigger and smaller, bigger and smaller. Hover over the second one, bigger. What? Oh, okay, there it happened. Why? What's causing that to happen? Bigger, smaller, bigger, smaller, bigger, bigger, smaller, bigger, bigger. Oh. It's something about... Oh, that was really cool. Did you see that, Kurt Cobain? That's actually really cool. So I have logic in place that says if you take the number of cards that you have, which in our case is 4, times the card size, and if that total size is less than or equal to the width of this panel, then you don't compress the cards, so you don't lay them on top of each other like this. But if the number of cards times their width when they're fully expanded like this is greater than the panel, then you start stacking them. And so that's working, and I think that's also the hint for our bug, because watch this. Look at that. Now they stack, which is really cool, but that means that the card size is getting changed. The actual... Because where am I doing that logic? I'm doing that in calculate target positions, where I'm doing that logic right here. So I say if the card count times the card width is less than or equal to the panel width, then I draw them out in full. Else I do my card collapsing logic. So that's telling me that the card width is being changed. Why? Okay. I'm passing this in by value here. Here. What? Okay, so what do you have? You're saying if the card count 4 times the card width, which is static, this is not changing, is less than or equal to the panel. let's see what that's telling us. This card width should never change. Right? So where I'm calling this, I'm using card to... Oh, whoops. Okay. Yeah, I found the bug. So I'm updating. Hi, Dat Wolf. Long time no see on the stream. I found my bug, Kurt Cobain and Det Wolf. So it was revealed when, I'll give you a quick recap, Det Wolf. I'm working on making the card bigger when you mouse over it, and it was working perfectly. Except for, all of a sudden, boom, they all get bigger. And then they just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. But this behavior is what keyed me off to the bug, because I have logic in here that says if the width of my card when it's not compressed at all times the number of cards is less than or equal to the panel. So when I only have a few amount of cards, I want to show them not compressed, so spaced out like this. But if I have, say, if the full width of the card exceeds the panel base times the card count, then I want to stack them. Thank you, Det Wolf. So see here, they're already stacked on each other. But that was the key to my bug, because the card width isn't changing. So the fact that, if you see here, and Kurt Cobain and I saw this, we got this really nice dynamic stacking effect that shouldn't be happening, because as soon as the card width, which is a static, it's a const, static const auto card width, which is what's being used in my method to calculate whether we should stack them or put them spaced out. Check this out. So with the bug that's making them bigger and bigger, if they get a little bit bigger, all of a sudden they stack. See, this behavior keyed me into the fact that somewhere we are writing to the card size, card dimensions, and of course we are right here. So in my the way that this card UI is laid out is I get the dimensions of my panel, which is just the card panel, and then I calculate my individual card size based on how big I want it to be, its aspect ratio, and then how big I want it to be compared to the panel. Then I create this card dimensions struct right here, which, this is why you want to do const correctness. This is const now. This is going to be const because this should never change. This is the dimensions of a single. Oh, and I've got lots of problems. So I didn't make this const because I thought, oh, I will just come here and I'll update in this loop the card dimensions for every card, because this tells you the position and the size of every card. And then I can just go draw it using this card dimensions. The problem here is that I'm writing to the card dimensions every time. So every time it gets bigger, it's going to stay bigger. So yeah, it's not going to fly. So here's what I'm going to do. Effect 2, const auto card size equals vec2 card dimensions dot size dot x. Actually, I can just do this. Then card pose equals card dimensions dot pose. So really what this needs to be is it's going to be the card current x positions dot y is going to be the card current x positions at I is going to be the x, and then pose is going to be the panel dimensions here. Now the size is going to be, the X will be our card. X size is I. And then the Y will be that same value times the aspect ratio of a card. Then I will just have this take that's why you always make everything const and then make it unconst if you don't need it to be const, and then you won't shoot yourself in the foot. Transpose. So Detwolf asks, what is 200 GitHub stars? We just got to 200 GitHub stars on our repository for the engine, which is really exciting. So if you don't have a GitHub repo, you can, or you don't know what a star is, it's just a like a social media like. And so 200 people have come in and liked the engine. And so that's really exciting. And we got 100 just maybe 6 months ago, so it's really, really cool. We stayed in the land of having 6 or 7 stars for like years and years and years. Now we're popping off into the stratosphere, so we're celebrating that. And I'm celebrating that by doing what I like doing best, which is coding in my bedroom alone. Although I don't have to be alone now because I've got you guys to help me fix my bugs. Okay, so I think that should have fixed it. We have decoupled. We are no longer writing to the global card dimension here. That was shared by everybody. But the cool thing about streaming, and see, Kurt Cobain, this is why it's okay if I get distracted in chatting. It's actually beneficial because Kurt Cobain suggested that why don't I just do shift scroll wheel to allow zooming into the cards, which is a really good idea. Thank you, Detwolf. It's a really cool day for us. I'm feeling very proud. Okay, what are you mad about? Oh, I already have a thing called card size, don't I? Okay, let's call it, okay, I think that'll fix it. Yes, sweet. Okay, now we just have to... I need to figure out how MGUI does its padding because we don't need a vertical scroll bar. But I don't know that you can choose not to have a vertical scroll bar and keep the horizontal scroll bar. Okay, so let's test it with 100. It's kind of ugly. It almost looked better before with when they're stacked like this. It looks like the wave when people do this at the bleachers. That's pretty cool. But I need to fix the fact that it's running off screen, and I need to fix the toolbar. It is. I agree. It's mesmerizing. Deadwolf says, and it's pretty performant. I thought that this was running at 40 FPS on my potato laptop. I'm not on my potato laptop right now, but I'm actually hitting 60 there too. And I'll test this new card UI, but I've actually simplified it to what it was before, so it should be even more performant. But we're able to maintain 60 FPS here. I think ImGUI is the way to go, even for production UIs, because these green scroll bars are still ImGUI looking, and this font and stuff obviously is. But eventually, when I'm done, you won't even be able to tell. Okay, so let's get rid of the vertical scroll bars. See if we can figure out why we're offset in the Y too much. Okay, no, but I'm going to. I got bored. So Detwolf said, you didn't put the severed head in the hand of the barbarian. I haven't yet, although I'm definitely going to. I'm going to put a severed head here. I'm also going to get rid of the primary blue because it doesn't fit right. I'm still torn between going dark fantasy and going classic retro fantasy, but it's definitely getting a severed head. Detwolf, if you send me a picture of you, I will make it look like you. If you want to be the severed head, you've earned that right. I will. Except it's probably gonna have long black hair. I don't know, maybe whatever hair color. It can have whatever hair color you have, but so a couple streams ago, Detwolf had recommended I put a severed head here in the hand and just put blood oozing around everywhere. Absolutely going to do that. But it's. The best thing about game dev is that when you get burnt out on like painting, for example, you can switch over to rewriting the card UI in ImGUI. And I'm getting pretty sick of this, so I think I'm going to go back to. I might pick up barbarian painting again and just finish that off. But what I'm more interested in doing is adding more. I think the right word is Foley, but adding more stuff in the cave, because the shader is. Or I'm just gonna call it a shader, Kurt Cobain and Omega Killer, even though it really is a material pipeline. But the shader really thrives when there's lots of small detail to pick up, and there isn't a lot of detail in this scene. You can kind of see some on the bumps of the cave, but on the dungeon. But to really make this shine, it needs more stuff in here, and that sounds like the most fun thing to work on right now. Also, I made a very, very cool Tatarigami monster maybe 6 months ago, and I want to put him in here, but I never animated it, and that sounds really horrible. Animating is the one thing that I don't like to do in the game dev pipeline. It's hard, it always looks like crap, and for whatever reason I cannot understand all of the nuances in Blender. It's just there's too many panels that relate to animation, like the I'm not going to open up Blender to show you, but there's the timeline, and then there's the action editor, and then there are the NLA strips. And if I follow the exact same process that I always do, I can get animated things into my game. But if even one thing goes wrong, I'm completely hosed. But yeah, Detwolf, if you send me your picture or a picture of anything you want, that gets to be the head of the barbarian, or the head that the barbarian is holding, because that was such a good idea. Because right now it's too empty. All of it, like the pulpy styles that I'm looking for have more going on. But if you could, I put a blue background because I got burnt out of trying to make a scene, and then I also got burnt out giving it the barbarian head. But I still have to do 3 more portraits because we need one for the rogue, one for the mage, and one for the warlock. But I think after I get cards going, I'm going to shift gears to modeling some more stuff to put in here to make it look a little nicer. And I don't really know what I'm going to do for lighting, because I kind of wanted to have torches, but let's set it down a little bit. It doesn't really look all that great, even if I go orangey. It doesn't really look very torchy because of the sharp cutoff. that the Toon Shader gives. Unless I end up animating it a little bit like that, that might be okay. But the idea is, I don't know if I've said this, a wolf's head. I can do it. Oh, I can do a wolf's head. Sure. That's a good idea. So I can't remember if I've said this on stream yet, but the viewport, like the environment in the viewport, is only meant to be a visual indicator of how many of your enemies you've killed. So when you'll be battling against an enemy deck, not a player, not an opposing player, but a deck of mobs, and you'll have to kill 30 mobs to equate to kind of a classic deck builder concept of victory points. Every mob you kill is a victory point. So you're racing to 30 victory points before your opponents can clear their 30. And each time you kill a mob, you're not going to be able to move in the viewport as far as progress your character forward, but every time you kill a mob, you'll take a big jump forward, like here, and then another one will pop up, and then once you kill it, you'll move here, and then once another one will pop up, and so forth. And once you get out of the dungeon, we're going to go for a dark twisted forest path. Then once you get out of there will be, I have said this on stream, I remember now, kind of a final showdown area with a lava pit and a Stonehenge-esque plinthy obelisk area where the final boss will be. Okay, so I'm going to try to get the vertical scroll bar to disappear on the... Is it even this panel or is it my window? I think it is the child panel. What if I want to disable the vertical scroll bar? Well, I think this is going to take away my horizontal scroll bar too. I think this one cancels both horizontal and vertical. It seems like a strange choice. I wonder why they don't have explicit toggles for both. Oh, you know, that actually might be okay. If I want my horizontal scroll bar. I might just be able to make one as a button and mock it out, because I really don't want that vertical scroll bar. Also, I don't want it to go only down. I also want it to go... I want it to go up and down. So that means the position has to go up in the Y. I don't care if it only goes to the right, that's okay. But if the item is the active one, the position has to go up in the Y by card size dot Y times card. Oh, that's kind of annoying. Card active width ratio times aspect ratio. Time divided by 2. Okay, so if you are the active card, current Y minus equals card width times... No, I want card height. Shoot. Can I think I can calculate. Okay, so. No, I can't. Can I? Yeah, I can. Just going to pass it. Card height in here too. So then card height times man, this function is getting really unwieldy because I need to multiply it by this times this. Oh. Oh no, this is the same ratio. Duh. So the amount I'm going to move is the card is getting 0.1 bigger, so I have to move it card height times 0.1 divided by 2. So let's just mock it out before I pass it on the parameters. So 0.1 divided by 2 is 0.5. And I think that's all I have to do. Oh, great. I'm not even tracking the current Y position. Shoot. But it feels pretty worth it to start tracking that, doesn't it? Because this doesn't... here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to leave that as a nice to have and not deal with it right now. That's what I'm going to do. So I don't want to track all the data just to make it move a tiny bit, but I do want to eventually do it. I just don't want to do it for the vertical slice. Are we building? Did I get rid of everything? Count active card width. Count active. Oh, there we go. It would be nice to do though. So I have really cleaned up my card UI handling. It's a lot simpler now, a lot easier to understand. So I'm going to check that in. Now I think I'm just going to work on some, oops. Oh, I don't think I ever talked about how I ended up making the pillar. I brought it up, but I never talked about it. So this is the pillar I'm using for the UI, and I'm really, really happy with how it turned out. But I spent the last 2 weeks trying to figure out how to make Celtic knots, and I gave up because it's really, really hard to do. I wonder if I have some examples. No, I don't have them open right now, but I went over and over and over and over again trying to do different Celtic knots, and then I found I can do it procedurally. So get rid of the normals. Is that here? Let's just go to object mode. So there is a Blender add-on called, oh, I have to find it again. Celtic knot, I think. Is this the one that I was using? Yeah, Celtic knot. And you can come in here and create some kind of object. Let's just say a cone. And you can, and it's free, but then you can come in here and go to curve, Celtic knot from mesh, and you can generate it here, and you can go choose pipe, or let's see, weave type twill. Oops, let's try that again here. Celtic knot from mesh. Okay, you can, it's kind of like a spirograph machine, if anyone remembers those. But you can mess with all sorts of settings here. Then come into Blender and you add a solidify modifier. Oh, how did I do this last time? That doesn't seem right. Well, somehow you can come in here and add a solidifier modifier. Solidify modifier. I don't know even why this is not changing it anymore. Huh. Well, odd. Cannot apply constructive modifying curve. Oh, maybe you have to convert it to a mesh. There we go. Okay, now we come in here and add a solidify modifier. No. Well, I'm forgetting a step that I did 2 weeks ago, but if you tweak around, play around with the settings and tweak them, you can eventually get actual geometry around those curves. And then you can just generate your own Celtic knots and throw them on stuff. And that was a huge time saver. Okay, so I think I am going to call it here, but I'm going to fiddle around on Blender probably later tonight. I have the whole week off of work. I took it off, so I'm gonna stream again this week sometime. You guys can see if I do end up going the Blender route, see some of the stuff I'm working on. I will try to find I think it's in X is where I have my guy, but I'll show you. So I made this guy, which I'm still really, really proud of in Blender, and I made him for a different project, but I'm going to import him as one of the enemies that you can fight. So he is like a Tatarigami, which is the demon monster from Princess Mononoke, but I made him a stone kind of earth crystal Tatarigami, and he looks really cool in the shader, so I'm going to import him into the game. He probably won't be the first enemy because they're going to scale, and he looks really cool. Thank you. But he'll be one of them. It looks really good in the game with lighting and all of that. But yeah, I'm gonna call it here. Thank you guys for supporting and watching. It really means a lot. It's so cool to see this becoming something. I will see you soon.